we'll get out the program that you were given at the door. If you don't have one, we can get you one. It looks just like this. And so we're going to go through some of this. I'm so glad that y'all are here and also watching online. You know, every week we have around 100 or so people that watch online, whether through our website or through Facebook Live. Isn't that fun? And I know people that watch that, even some missionary friends that we have overseas, and that's really exciting. So those of you watching online, we're glad that you join us every single week. But those of you that are here, get this out. Inside here, it's got all kinds of different things. If you're new here, I want to let you know we have been praying for you and excited for you to come. We're prepared for you in such a way that we have a new here card. Doesn't that show that we're prepared? Isn't that good? We do one thing right, but on the back of here, you don't have to give us your social security number or anything like that, but there's just a few boxes. Turn that in to the box in the back. But then if you're a second-time guest or regular attender or partner at our church, there's the connection card that looks just like this. Then you can just fill this out. This is really, really important, especially in the new stage that we're going through. We started this location with Pinnacle Church Planting Network back in 2015, October, so less than 3 years. But we're making this next transition to become our own church, which is really exciting, and to create new networks and things like that. And so we want you to be part of that. So what that looks like, if you're coming to our church and things like that, we want you to be involved in this process. And we have created a lead team with our local church. So all this means in the transition is that now people will make decisions and big time things like that inside our church. Isn't that fun? Yeah. It's really good. That's what I see biblical and things. So we'll be able to go this direction. And our lead team, we're going to do something different. We believe in our people. And our lead launch team, what we've done, we've prayed and things, met a couple times, and we believe that the best is still yet to come. You know, we know that in less than 3 years, baptized 42 people. We're ready to go for more, right? We're going to, I really believe that we're going to hit 100 before too long. So we're going to keep going in this. And so our lead team, lead launch team, what we want to do, we want you to be part of the process. Now, maybe you've heard some of that stuff before inside the church, but we're going to show you because you get to pick the name of our church. I know that sounds a little weird, don't it? But we believe in you in that way. So what's going to happen, if you fill this out today, we're going to take that and then we're going to send you a link to where you can pick one of 3 names. And then inside the insert that looks just like this, it lets you know about the process and steps that we're taking and all this. But it lets you know what we'll do today is we will send out a link, and you will have until the 9th to pray and pick a name for our church. Then on August 12th, we'll reveal the name of the church. And then on September 9th, it's going to be a really fun and exciting day. We're going to have one service at 9:30, and then at 11, we're going to have a big logo reveal party. And that's whenever, for the first 150 people, we're going to give away T-shirts. And that's going to be fun. We're going to have our new signs out front and invite cards for you to give out, website, and all that. Then September 16th, our adventure begins as a new church. Isn't that fun? Does that sound fun to y'all? Yeah. Sounds really fun. So you will get to choose one of 3 names of our church, and we're just going to let the majority wins on that, and we're excited about going forward. Are y'all excited about that? We are too. So you will get to hear from in the future some of our lead launch team and things like that. And so anyway, we just desire, I desire to be a place where you can be real, open, and honest with God, with each other. And so today you're going to get to hear a story of mine that more than likely you wouldn't hear from a pastor or things like that. And if that scares you away, I'm sorry. But we're going to go through that because we believe real, authentic stuff is best, right? And so today we're starting this brand new series called Hashtag God, Hashtag My People. Today we're going through Hashtag God's People, and we're going to go through this. But if you missed any of the past messages, either here or online, you can check that out, pinnaclechurch.com, and just click latest message, and then you can check out any of the previous messages. But one of the things for me, we have this big blow-up screen for outside. It's really big. I can't remember if it's like 15 feet or whatever. It's just a really big thing. I was like, we could buy this and use this for ministry, and this would be really good. So the first thing we did was watch the Conor McGregor fight last fall and Mayweather fight. That's the first thing we did. So those of you that do kind of know me or watching online, one of the things, I am a guy, and I just like guy stuff, so I love to watch fights and things like that. But there is one guy that I think is one of the baddest UFC fighters that's out there. So we're going to see it on the screen. Does anybody know who this guy is? Nate Diaz, right? So he don't look like he could whoop anybody at all, right? Joe, I think he would have got run over by that guy and not get the out like you did the other day. But we had a softball team. It done really good. We're going to do it again. It's going to be fun. But Nate, right here, man, I don't condone anything that he does because it's pretty wild. He's from Stockton, and those of you who have heard of Stockton and all that, it's a pretty bad place, like bad as in like tough place. But he's from there. But this guy, he can take just about anybody out. Now the issue is he has got an attitude, right? And so with that, there are relationships that he has that it doesn't matter, even if he wins the fight, that relationship is not reconciled at all. And when we talk about reconciled, that's a relationship that's being restored, brought back together. So that's him. And those of you who think, oh, you shouldn't fight and blah, blah, blah. Well, I paid $100 for one of those things. I'm just being honest. That's me. I remember the first time I'd ever bought one. And Nicole and I, we were watching it. I was the pastor of the first church that I pastored whenever I was 19 years old. And we were watching that, and then here comes the main event, and Nicole comes out, and she says, Zach, my water broke. And that's whenever Isaac, we had Isaac, and I was like, it's the main event! But we didn't watch that. We went and had a kid and all that. But anyway. But sometimes you and I, just like he's got relationships that are jacked up, we have relationships that are jacked up. Does anybody have maybe family members that you're just never going to talk to again? Does anybody have that? You ever have neighbors that you're like, I don't even care if I ever see you again for the rest of my life. Does anybody have that? Well, what about co-workers? Do you ever have co-workers that you're like, maybe you are a little kind, so maybe you're not like, I wish you would die. Maybe you're not like that, but maybe it's like, I wish I would never see you ever again, and my life will be just fine if we never talk again. Have you ever had a coworker like that? Well, for me, Nicole and I, how we survive is people treat us like missionaries. So people all over the country, they give financially for Nicole and I. This was the direction that we felt led to do. Actually, yesterday was 4 years since we quit all of our jobs, making over 6 figures collectively. Lord had blessed Nicole and I. Not that we had family that really, not that we didn't have family that didn't help us, but Nicole and I, we got married. She was 17 in high school. I was 18. And we just had a lot of grit and so got through college and all that, and became an electrician at Arkansas State University. My wife, she managed 2 hospital clinics, and we were all in our 20s, but God was leading us to come out here to start churches. So we said, you know what, the best thing to do, what we feel led to do, is to quit everything. We were guaranteed $2,000 a month because at the time we weren't taking salary from the church or anything. And so it was like, let's just quit everything, move out there. We left our house for sale back in Arkansas, had a car that was still there. And I look at it now, looking back, and it's like there is really a fine line between faith and stupidity, right? And I don't know what side I was riding on that, but we felt led to do this, and so people treat us like missionaries, and so for us to take this new step in our church, Nicole and I, we get to go back to Arkansas and Tennessee, Alabama, and things. We get to go and talk with some more people about what God's doing. You know, like with Brandon, how Brandon was baptized not too long ago, and him already discipling people, going through that process, and many of y'all. And so we get to go share those things. But what that brings is that I have family members that are just crazy, and I know they watch the message sometimes, but it's not that we don't care for each other, it's that we just have differences in things. But my family, we would be okay if we wouldn't see each other for a year, 2 years, and then we just met up, then it would be like no time had ever passed. That's my family. But Nicole, my wife, she has 6 brothers and sisters. And so they have a big family, and their family is tightly knit, connected, and they love to spend time with each other. They play all these card games and stuff. Does anybody play those, like hearts or spades or anything like that? Anybody play that? My ADD is like too bad. I cannot sit there and do this. Like war is even too slow for me. And so Nicole, she hadn't seen her family in over a year, and we get to go back. And so as we were driving, we have to schedule different trips at different places to meet with churches and things. But as we were driving, I will confess something. Okay, Jeff, I'll confess this, but we're not going. I wasn't going to eat ice cream and that, and a couple weeks ago I did because I was having a hard time. But after that, you know, the letter of the law was ice cream, so I decided to get frozen yogurt, right, with gummy bears and all that, because it's not ice cream, it's frozen yogurt. Like, that sounds legit to me. Right, Melissa? Maybe? Yeah, so Nicole and I were going there, and I made this comment to Nicole, and I'd said, you know, Nicole, I want to be on the same page before we get back, because what I don't want to do is to have these things scheduled. Then you say, well, how about let's not go back then, because I want to spend time with my family. World War III started right there. Now, Nicole and I, in the fight or flight thing, Nicole runs away. She would rather run away and talk about all that later. Me, I like to just, let's get everything out there, get it over with, and let's go forward. We can move forward from there. That's not how she operates. And I pushed a little too hard. She shut down. And then because of what I did, it made her very, very frustrated. So maybe you have something like that. What I want you to do is get out the insert. It looks just like this, but inside here, I want you to write down what is one relationship that maybe you have written off, or one relationship you think will never ever be the same again. I want you to write that down. If you're not writing, maybe that person's too close to you. Yeah. But don't we all have that? all have tensions with relationships. It doesn't matter if we live with them or not. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to get married and to stay married. You know, that's hard. With Nicole and I both coming from broken homes, it's over a 60% chance saying that we're going to get divorced because of our background. But there's tensions that we all have with relationships, and I believe this, the passage that we're going to look at real briefly here, what I believe, if we can understand some of these foundational things that we're going to read today, I believe that can help with relationships. So Paul, in the New Testament, we're going to be in Colossians chapter 1, starting verse 15. It will be on page 641 in the Bibles that are in your seat. If you don't have a Bible, you can take that. That is a gift from us to you. But we're going to look at this. And Paul, he had a friend at Colossae, and Paul had never actually been here, but this guy was having issues inside this church, so he went to Paul. Paul was in prison. He wrote this letter to this church, and so he was writing this letter, one for encouragement, two for correction, and to build up and things so that they could take the right steps. And so what we're going to see is it gets to this place as we go down in verse 15. It starts off where we jump in talking about Jesus. And it says this: He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For verse 16, for everything was created by Him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through Him and for Him. He is before all things, and by Him all things hold together. Verse 18. He is also the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that He might come to have first place in everything. And as Paul was writing this, he says this thing in verse 15. Says that Jesus is the image of God, the invisible God. Jesus talks about how God, even though Jesus is God, He's talking about the Father, and He says that He is Spirit. God is Spirit in the book of John. But then what we see is some attributes from God is that, and Jesus is God, but some attributes come out, and we see the love that Jesus has, so we get to see some of the characteristics of God. But then going on from there, it says that in verse 16, for everything was created by Him. So everything that we see and that we don't see, it is created by Jesus. I say this a lot, but that light travels at 186,000 miles per second. And it is, God said, let there be light, and then it is through Jesus that has been created. And so I believe if we could understand this, and we had this, maybe you need to underline that. I know I have it underlined. If you're using the YouVersion Bible app, you can highlight that. But I believe when it comes to relationships, just like this church had issues, I believe any time in relationships, if we can remember this, then relationships all around us would be better. For example, I will tell you, and it was my fault that for days, that Nicole and I, we had a tough time in our relationship. I can tell you that. It's my fault, not Nicole's. I was too stubborn. But if I remembered this, that Nicole was created by God, then some of the frustration that I had towards her could go away if I treated her like a daughter of the king. Right? Does that make sense? And so I'll never forget a guy that has poured into my life. His name was Ben Phillips. And he helped Nicole and I when we went through miscarriages and things. But he told me, anytime I get frustrated with Nicole, and I don't know why he threw that out there. It's like he knew me or something. But he said, anytime you get frustrated, you need to remember that Nicole is from God and Nicole is God's gift to you. But when I got frustrated the other day, I forgot that. Has that ever happened to you? You ever forgot that? You ever forgot, those of you that got kids, you ever forgot that they're a gift from God? And I know it's like, well, at that moment they weren't. but they are, right? So Paul gives us this thing and tells the people in Colossae, like, everything was created through him and by him. And so what we see is that Jesus is not equal to anything else. He's not equal to us. We're not equal to Jesus because we are created beings and Jesus is not. And so everything's created by him. But what I want you to see, look in verse 17. And this is really important. Because we're talking about my people, we're talking about community. But we see in verse 17 that it is by him that all things hold together. Think about it. With all of us sitting in here, the only reason why we're in here is not because we are good by nature, because we're not, but we're in here because God is holding us together. Right? In this faith journey that we're on, God, He always wants to keep us on track. Right? God loves us, cares for us. But it is by Him that all things hold together. Some of you, if you like, does anybody like scientific stuff? I can throw out this word. I know in communication they tell you don't do this, but here we go. You can write down this word laminin, Laminin, and you can search laminin. That will blow your mind. I'll just tell you. But it is through Jesus that all things hold together. My marriage is held together not because I try hard or Nicole tries hard. It's because Jesus holds that together. We continually to come back together as a church because Jesus holds that together. It's not that we think everybody in here is perfect, right? It's because Jesus holds everything together. But when we're talking about God's people, there's this broken thing in this relationship with God that you and I... Has anybody ever made a bad decision? Has the person next to you made a bad decision? Yeah. Get more response with that one. But what we see is that our relationship, because of bad decisions, rebellion, sin, and things, our relationship with God has been broken. But Jesus brings us together to be restored. Our relationship can be restored with God no matter what we've done. Isn't that wild? Think about it. You may say, Zach, I'm holding on to this, and I don't know that God really forgives me for this. Well, I can say God can forgive you for anything, just like God has with me. Isn't that kind of heavy? You don't know what I've done? And if so, you probably wouldn't be here. But because Jesus, He holds all things together, it changes everything. And it's what He does. But then look at verse 18. He is also the head of the body, the church. And so for us, as we go forward in the steps of our church, what we need to do as you get this email about a link to choose the name for our church, obviously the first thing that we need to pray for is for God's plan to be done, for God's will and desire to be done, even in picking the name of our church. Because that's important, right? And so, for example, one of the things that God has blessed us with is being able to reach out to several families and several people who have been hurt by the church or have never been to church before ever in their life. And God lets us do that. And I believe that a name is the front door to the church. People look us up online before they come. And so if a name, if we choose some weird name, that may be a barrier for people to come to know Jesus right here. So I think that's important. I'll give you an example just to kind of clarify something. One of my friends, he didn't really have a church background. He went to this church. He didn't know it. He thought it was going to be kind of like ours. It was a little different. The guy wore a robe and everything else. It was a little weird for him. But they sang this song, and it was an old hymn. Does anybody know what a hymn is? Like the old hymn? There's this hymn, and he walked in nervous, scared to death. He walks in, and then they start singing this song, I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb. And he was like, telling me this story. I was like, oh, that's a great song. And he said, I was afraid that they were going to bring some blood out or something. And then, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so, it's easy for us to get in the mindset to think, oh, this is good and it's biblical. And there's things that are biblical that just seem a little weird outside of our context. But I believe we need to do whatever to take barriers away where people can have a relationship with Jesus. But as we make decisions, what we need to know is that nobody here is head of the church. Jesus is. Right? We seek God and to make all these decisions. But as we walk along our journey, what we need to do is we always need to realize where there's brokenness in relationships, whether it be relationship with God or with other people, we need to remember the main point. And here's the main point for today. We're going to pull it up here. But because I belong to Christ, I will daily live for Christ. And I want you to write that down. But because I belong to Christ, I will daily live for Christ. If I believe this, and I believe that Jesus created everything, the other day, when I was causing issues in mine and my wife's relationship, if I would believe those things, then I would look past differences that we have. But isn't it hard to look past differences? Yeah. But man, as we're on our faith journey, we need to remember, because I belong to Christ, I will daily live for Christ. And this relationship with Jesus is a daily relationship. It's not rituals that we go through and we say, yes, I prayed today. Check. Okay, I don't have to do that again. Yes, I read my Bible today. But somebody that helped me in my faith journey, what they said is, Zach, if you read in the morning and then you can't remember what you read at night, then maybe you're just checking boxes and reading your Bible. And I was like, you know how much goes through my mind? It is a lot. But that was a good thermometer to help me realize about this daily relationship with Jesus, trying to learn from Jesus. But then going on from there, Paul tells the people in Colossae, he says this in verse 19. For God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him. So Jesus was 100% God and 100% man. He was different than anything else that had ever came to earth. But God was pleased with what Jesus did. And then in verse 20, and through Him to reconcile everything to himself, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. And so there's that word reconcile. This is bringing back together. So God created us. We are sinful by nature. We make decisions based on what we want versus sometimes what God wants, right? All right, me and Jeff, we're sinners, and the rest of you welcome Jesus. Like that's like we don't make the most godly decisions all the time, especially when we're ticked off. But today, talking about this, what we see is that God can bring anybody to Him, and anybody can become a follower of Jesus. Isn't that good? Doesn't matter what we've done. And through Jesus to reconcile everything to himself. Now, this isn't saying that everybody's going to be a follower of Jesus, but what this is saying is that everybody is going to be in submission with Jesus at one time. But with this, our relationship with God is broken, but we can be brought back in a relationship with God through Jesus. But we are worshipful beings. We love to worship. We love to find purpose, don't we? Don't you love when you fit in? Have you ever had a job and it's like, well, this sucks. But then you find purpose and it's like, oh yeah, I can go all day. I can't believe people pay me for this, right? That happens. When we find purpose, everything changes. But Jesus, He is the one that restores this relationship with God. But I think it's funny, if you think about it, we try to earn our way into this relationship with Jesus. Well, let me do good. Let me give money away or food away, then maybe God will love me more. Have you ever done that? Maybe if I'm nice to this jerk, God will love me more. Maybe, you know what, if I quit looking at porn, if I'm nice to my spouse, if I don't drink too much, or if I quit taking all these pills, then God will love me more. Here's the mind-blowing reality of Scripture, is that God is love, and that God loves us not based on what we do, but who He is. There's nothing that we can do for God to love us more. Think about it. God can bring everything to Himself, and the broken relationship, it can be restored and even have peace. But it's through Jesus and what He did on the cross. Isn't that pretty amazing? Yeah? We don't need to be told how bad we are, do we? We know that. But the great news is the gospel. The gospel is the story of Jesus. It's called the good news because the good news is good news. And we can have a relationship with God. The life that we live now is a short time. And so that's how come whenever I was struggling in mine and Cole's relationship, when I thought she blew up for no reason and she thought it was legit for what she said, I got to share with some guys and they were like, well, maybe this or this or this. And so I went to her. I took her chocolate, and then I was like, hey, baby, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for pushing you. I know I shouldn't have pushed you, but I'm sorry. And Nicole and I had a great rest of the week. But you know why we don't say sorry? Because of pride. My dad, he told my adopted dad, he said, Zach, one of the best things you can do is say sorry, and even though it wasn't your fault. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I have integrity. And then he explained to me about Jesus dying on our behalf. And it's like, what better thing to say sorry to bring relationships back together. When we're talking about God's people, we don't know who God's people is. We don't know who they are. And we don't know who next week, maybe the person that we wrote down, we don't know if they're going to be a follower of Jesus next month or next year. But wouldn't it be better if we tried to do our part and being nice and kind to people no matter what they've done? Wouldn't you think that would be good? Wouldn't you think it'd be good to love people even though that they sin differently than us? Isn't it easy to judge people because, we don't do that, do we? Because we're Christians and stuff, right? But isn't it easy to judge people because their sin may be open and ours is private? Hey, best thing we can do is to realize that God created everybody, and then everybody has a chance to become a follower of Jesus, and that God could use us to take steps, as we take steps, to where other people will know Jesus. And the kindness that you show is just a mirror image of what God shows to us. And when you show kindness, it could change everything. So what this looks like, look here on the insert, it's got challenges. So what this looks like is to take a step. And in exploring faith, in our faith journey, it's not trying to do good things. First, it's having a relationship with Jesus. So fill in this blank. Take a step to belong to Christ in order to daily follow Him. So instead of trying to do good things, instead of trying to do things that you think God would love you more if you did them, focus on your relationship with Jesus. And what that looks like is starting with prayer, and it could be reading the Bible. One of the best things we work through and push people towards the YouVersion Bible app. It is an app that is on your phone, and people could read Bible plans together. And starting this week, we're going to have some of our small groups read some of those together, and it's going to be really exciting. But this is talking about belonging to Christ, and the only way we can belong is looking to Jesus for the restoration with the relationship with God. It's not us doing things. Then from there, once we become a follower of Jesus, we have a new family. So look at this on your insert. This is about community, experience community. Our value is rooted in being created and purchased by Christ. We may not feel like we have much value at all because of how the world treats us. But the value of something is what someone's willing to pay, and Jesus gave His life. So you're valuable. We don't get told that a lot, do we? You're loved, you're valuable, and you're important, and the God of the universe cares. Now, if you're anything like me, it's like, hey God, you forget about me? Are you asleep? That's what I feel sometimes. But then reading the Bible, that lets me know more the character of God, and knowing that, man, the value is focused on what Jesus did for us. And so with this community, with other Christ followers, has anybody ever had a bad relationship with another Christ follower? Yeah. Well, when we see that they're learning just like us, it's easier to forgive, isn't it? It is. And so in this, no one that I know says they're perfect. And as Christ followers, we don't say we're perfect. Do we? No? We don't say that. I don't even know where that came from. It's crazy. But as followers of Jesus, we need to learn how to live together, because we're going to be together for a really long time. Why not start now? Right? And then from there, realize this, that God gives us a mission to share what Jesus has done in our life with other people. And by you taking a step and sharing, other people can go to church for the first time. Other people can read the Bible for the first time. But look at this, expand mission. You can share the answer to people's pursuit of value and belonging. So you can share that. All of us, we're seeking value, we're seeking purpose, and we're doing all this. But sometimes we look in the wrong places, don't we? Yeah. We look in the wrong places when Jesus is where we get everything from. So if you're not a follower of Jesus, on the connection card right here, you can mark down spiritual things. We'd love to follow up with you about salvation. Maybe your next step's baptism. We're going to have another baptism service coming up. And then also, don't forget to fill this out, because this will let us know who to send the link to choose on the name. But something I want to share with you real briefly before the band comes up about expanding his mission. Whenever I became a follower of Jesus, I was 18 years old. And I had a lot to work through, and I was reading the Bible for the first time for myself. And those of you that know my story know my mom committed suicide when I was 13. I've only told this story one time here, but my stepdad that day, he gave the gun to my mom, and he said, "You won't do it, you won't do it, I bet you won't do it." She did it. And there's a lot of hurt there. And whenever I became a follower of Jesus, I got to reading the Bible. I started in Matthew, and then I go in Matthew 5, where Jesus is talking about forgiving people. And God led me to go to a whole different town, find out where my stepdad lives, and to go and to ask and to tell my stepdad, to let him know, I'm a follower of Jesus now, and I want to let you know Jesus forgave me, and I want to let you know I'll forgive you. You know how hard that was? You know how many emotions that brought up? It brought up things I didn't even want to think about. But did you know that I'm at peace now because of that? Some of the hardest decisions you have to do will bring peace in ways that you wouldn't imagine, and it has to do with a right relationship with Jesus. So whatever your step is, let's take that step. We're going to pray, and then we're going to sing one last song. So let's all bow our heads together, and we can pray. God, I pray that you will allow us to take steps. God, those of us that struggle so much with a lot of different things, God, there is no way that I can know, or we could all know, what everybody's going through. God, maybe today you brought up something in our life that we didn't want to think about. God, I pray that we would see, first and foremost, we need a relationship with you more than we need our next breath. God, I'm glad that you show us grace and mercy. God, let us take steps and follow you no matter what. God, I pray that those that are taking steps to become a Christ follower, maybe for the first time, God, I pray that you allow people to say yes for the first time. I'm going to take this serious, and I'm going to follow Jesus. I pray that would be true. Pray that, God, you would forgive us from things that we even forgot about. God, those of us who have issues with other Christ followers, I pray that you would let us see that they're learning too, and we need to forgive, because, God, we don't know who your people are. And, God, we want to love your people because you died for them too. And, God, I pray that you let us see you give us purpose today. You give us purpose to let us continue to take steps. God, you're good, and I pray that you let us follow you every step of our life. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's stand and sing.